my boots and a dream in my veins. Let's ride.
Okay, here we go. This podcast is going to be about tactical movement and Grayman movement. Actually, mostly about Grayman movement. This doesn't necessarily have to be during a crisis situation. However, it's a good thing to think about in your head while you're walking around, how you could move around more tactically, more Grayman. You know, if you're one of those guys that has to wear 7 gold chains and a dookie rope and you know, your hat on backwards and all that crazy shit, you're going to be a quick target and you're going to die right away anyhow, so you don't have to listen to this one. But for those of you that want to start to take this seriously and are starting to realize that something is going to go down, most likely, you should be starting to train like you fight and fight like you train, which means maybe when you're out and about, start thinking about Grayman movements. Start thinking about, am I walking in too much of a direct line to get to where I want to go? Because you know how if you're starting a straight line where you're using a level, as long as you're following along that same level, you're going to get to where you were going. I don't know how else to explain this. It's a fairly simple thing, but I know it's very difficult to explain, so I apologize if it doesn't come out right. But what I'm getting at is if you put a level down on a piece of drywall and you draw your line on it, you know the start and you know the end simply because it's a straight line. Well, it's the same thing during tactical or Grayman movement. If you're walking in a straight line and you got some bad guy out there thinking about taking something from you or trying to figure out where you're going, if you're walking in a straight line, he can pretty much figure out where you're going. This is a bad thing, especially if you have other people waiting for you at your destination. So maybe every now and then, if not all the time, when you're out and about, don't travel in straight lines. Walk across the street, maybe double back every now and then. Don't start looking for somebody following you. That's just a little too paranoid even for what I'm talking about. But start getting into this mindset where the shortest distance between two safe lines, the shortest distance between 2 points is not always the safest distance between 2 points. You should never walk somebody directly into where you want to go. So, you know, I'm going to talk about J-hooks later and stuff like that, but for now, just every now and then stop, you know, don't keep walking. See if try to get used to the fact, you know, maybe somebody else is stopping when I stop 20 feet away from me. I'm not saying be paranoid, I'm just saying start to think about it. But definitely do not do that straight to where I'm going bullshit. I'm at the point now where I will even, if I'm driving somewhere and that car behind me is just following me a little too close or it's been following me a little too long, I do not stop where I'm going. In fact, I start veering and going away from the place I was going, and I'll even double back and circle around to see if that car is going the same place I'm going or what's going on. And I will get out and confront somebody if they're following me. That's probably not the best idea in the world, but that's just who I am. What I'm getting at is you don't lead somebody to the place you're going. And the other problem is if you did a straight line, even if they didn't see you leave, it's real easy to shoot your 6 and figure out where you came from. So don't necessarily leave in the straight in the direction you want to go. Yes, it takes longer. Get your ass up earlier. That's all I can tell you. Get your ass up earlier so you don't have to hurry or adjust or anything on the fly. Before I go any further, some more of y'all better start subscribing and liking the podcast, because I'm not going to keep doing this shit if more people don't subscribe. I have some. I've gotten a few nice emails, but more of y'all need to start subscribing, or I'm just going to take all this shit down. This is getting ridiculous. I've got so many people downloading podcasts, but nobody's subscribing or liking. Getting real old. Stepped up to the plate. Say thank you. All right, back to tactical movement. There's a, like I said, you shouldn't always be paranoid. You shouldn't always be thinking somebody's following you. It's a horrible way to live, but there is a time and a place for it. There's a time and a place for the gray man, like I said, and there's a time and place for the tactical, but I'm going to try to talk you out of tactical movement, and I'll explain that later. There's actually a time and a place for going all Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, kicking out the doors, running out, guns blazing against the whole Bolivian army. I've never been in a situation like that. I don't ever plan on being in a situation like that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, rent a good movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Robert Redford and I don't know, whoever the hell was in it with him. You just need to think about when you're exiting somewhere. If you're one of them people that has to say goodbye to the whole room, well, you'll figure it out. Let's talk about Grayman movement. Grayman movement is movement that will not draw any attention to you. Don't forget from an earlier podcast that I had, when you're Grayman, your goal is to be virtually invisible and totally forgettable. And I'm not talking about, people seeing through you. I'm just saying you have to be totally forgettable. There's nothing about you that someone would look at and say, oh, I saw that guy, he was here at this time. No, you need to start surrendering to the idea that vanity is a bad thing when shit's hitting the fan. You don't want to be wearing anything that really stands out in someone's mind. You don't want to be, wearing so much cologne you leave a puddle when you stand still. You really need to start getting the idea that if you blend in, you're much safer. You should not be exhibiting anything that presents any kind of a threat. You should not be doing anything interesting. Like if you got a good singing voice and you're walking through a crowd of people, that's going to get people's attention, as will a bad singing voice, I might add. And you should not be so obviously looking around like you're paranoid. Paranoid people have something to hide, or at least they think they do. This is not the time when you're doing Grayman movement. This is not the time where you're Tactical Joe with your head on a swivel, taking notes and making radio calls and jumping from door frame to behind a car. And you also know you're not going to be jumping across car hoods to take cover because, that's what tactical people do. All your movement should be very, very nondescript and almost irrelevant. I guess I can't think of a better way to say it. The problem is everyone thinks when you start to get into a beginning of shit hits a fan situation, everything has to be pre-planned. Everything has to be addressed, talked out, and everything else. This is not the time for that. Grayman movement, you should not be planning because it's going to start looking mechanical if you're planning it. You should not have, I'm starting at point A, and I'm moving to point B in your mind. It should be, I'm going to get out this door, I'm going to go over there, and we'll see where it goes from there. But when you're looking for where you're moving to, even if it's just 50 feet away, you shouldn't be looking ahead and looking in windows and looking at, balconies or whatever. It's very easily picked up on. This is when you're going to start using your peripheral vision. This is when you're going to start just moving. If you're in a situation, again, like where I talked about earlier, where everyone there is disheveled, everyone is hungry, everyone is thirsty, and believe me, they're going to be complaining about thirsty before hungry, but everyone's walking around looking for water. You need to give off the appearance that you're looking for water, that you're confused. If it's a couple days into a situation where there's no water or something like that, you actually want to start acting so confused that you're not making sense. You want to start talking about the headache that you have if it comes up. The goal is not to talk to anybody, to be honest with you, because you're not going to be interested in talking to people. You're going to be confused. You're dehydrated, and it's taking a toll on you. You're going into a form of shock. So it's not the time to be social. It's not the time to make friends. You're looking for water. That's how you're making movement from one point to the other. You're not looking for cover. The difference between cover and concealment: cover is something that protects you from gunfire. Concealment is something where you're hidden. Cover and concealment is the ultimate. But this is one of those times where if you're going from one cover situation to another cover situation, bad guys are going to pick up on that. That's tactical movement. Whereas if you're more or less moving from concealment to concealment, or maybe even not even concealment, you're not going to stand out so much. If things are starting to get crazy, if things are starting to heat up, and you hear them pew pews going off, the only thing you're thinking about at this point is obviously cover. One of the best places to take cover is behind an engine block, like on the side of a car with the engine block between you and the bad guys. Always think of this when you have to take immediate cover, because people are looking to get into a building or do this or do that. Not the best idea, because then you're standing up to get through a window or standing up to run through a door. You can dive behind the side of a car and have an engine block between you and the bad stuff real quick, and you're not drawing any attention to yourself. If you're going to be doing any kind of tactical movement, or I'm sorry, if you're going to be doing any kind of Grayman movement, before you move from your place of safety or your place of cover, you should know where you're going. You should pretty much be able to have seen your entire lane of movement, which could possibly be as small as 100 feet. But you should have a good idea where you're going, so you can walk off to the side and you can do things that don't look normal, or not so much normal, but not so direct. You might be walking around, digging through trash to look for water bottles or something like that. That's going to make you blend in. Walking in a straight line is going to make you stick out. So keep this in mind. Now, I'm not saying now or tomorrow when you go shopping, you're walking across the parking lot going into a grocery store. I'm not saying start digging through the trash can and walking all over the place to get to the door of the grocery store. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is starting to think smarter when you're moving. Start to think, maybe it would be better if I go over here first and then loop back around. Now, nobody's going to do that in the wintertime or the summertime when it's too hot, or the wintertime when it's too cold, or if it's pouring like crazy. But you can at least start getting into that mindset. Always think that. That's what I was talking about before, where I said, is your car set up so the doors pop open automatically when you put it in park? Bad idea. Really bad idea. And the whole, I'm going to take the closest parking space I can find, but if one side of your car is blocked where you can't see what's going on, you'd have been better off parking further out and walking across the parking lot. So keep that in mind. This is all part of Grayman movement. You don't just do this overnight. This is something you have to train yourself to do. Really, you really have to get into this mindset. You don't just go outside, hear the air raid sirens, EMP goes off, world's turning to shit, and you're Grayman. It doesn't work like that. You need to start thinking about it and practicing it now. If nothing else, thinking about how you can implement it and what you would do. Keep in mind, Grayman, you're not going to move more than one block at a time. And when I say that, I mean you move one block, you huddle down, and you wait. And you start paying attention to what's going on. You start listening, you start smelling, you start everything you could possibly do just sitting still. Stay on point, watch what's going on. You don't want to make any long moves in the middle of the day. People will pick up on that, especially if you're doing it with 2 or more people. You're going to move with the crowds. Try to move through and with the crowds. If there are crowds, if there's a lot of people around, try to move from group to group. Don't necessarily move in a straight line. Again, like I said, straight lines give you away every time. You should have assembly points outlined before you move. So if there's more than 2 or 3 people, if something happens or something goes down, everybody knows go to an assembly point. Or if they're going to their first point of origin and it doesn't look too cool, it looks like something went sideways, they know to automatically go to the next assembly point, not to go to the original meeting place. Movement at night is never a good idea with untrained people. And when I say untrained, I mean non-military, non-law enforcement. People that think they know everything about survival because they play, video games. Dear God, don't even let them into your group. However, they're not the ones to listen to. They're not the ones to follow. And believe it or not, some of them people actually think they're trained military because they sit there and played Rainbow Six or whatever the newest combat game is. Those would be the people you freely and openly tell to shut the hell up and get in the back of the line. Movement at night is a bad idea if you're not trained. I'm just going to tell you, do not move at night. It's very difficult because sound travels better, because you're probably not going to have night vision gear, because you have no idea what the hell you're doing most times. Don't move at night. There's a million ways to set up booby traps, but there's only one or two ways to move through them. You don't know either. So don't move at night unless you're trained to move at night. Just stick with moving during the day. Don't be thinking you're going to be wearing camouflage. It's going to give you away. It's not Grayman. And you want to look tired. If it's a couple days or a week into an oh shit situation, people are going to be tired. They're not going to be sleeping. They're not going to know what the hell's going on. They're going to be confused. Guess what, pumpkin? You need to be the same way. You need to be doing everything everyone else is doing. You do not want to stand out. It is not Grayman. So Grayman movement in this case is going to be confused. You're going to be moving from place to place looking for water, looking for food. Even if you have food, like I discussed before, you should be getting in line for food. If you walk past a food line, you might as well put a bike flag on your back and walk around the crowd with that bike flag waving, 2 or 3 feet above your head. You cannot pass up obvious food and water in a crisis situation. Now, if it feels like the situation's going to go sideways or it's unstable, then don't get in line. But don't walk right past it. You got to move in a way where it would appear that you didn't see it, if that makes any sense. And this is not the time to be making friends. You're Grayman. You don't have friends. I would say, again, you really got to hide your pew-pew good. You don't want it to be anywhere where if you're bumping up against someone, they're going to feel it. You don't want it to be somewhere where if you bend over to tie your shoe, it falls out. It should probably be in a pack, like an EDC pack, or maybe a hybrid EDC get-home bag. But you got to have it where you can get to it. Just concealment is more important than access in a situation where you're Grayman. You need to get it past yourself. You need to get it through your head. Concealment of the weapon, whatever weapon system you have, is more important than access in a Grayman situation. If you're printing, professionals are going to know what to look for. Don't do it. I know this is falling on deaf ears. I know if 50 people, no, let's say if 200 people are listening to this right now, 5 to 10 of them are thinking about going and buying a Desert Eagle. And, they're the people I don't hang around with, I don't talk to. I will tell you to get away from me if we're at the range. The bigger the gun is, not the better. The more concealable is always better than carrying some hand cannon. You don't need a big gun. And I know this is one of the first times I'm talking about guns and buying guns, but there are so many idiots out there that think they need a big gun and a large caliber, and they need a 30-round magazine, and they need, like a Glock with a switch on it. Y'all can go to hell. You're idiots. You're so easily influenced by things you don't understand. You need to come back to reality. You don't need that shit. You really don't. If you ever saw somebody fire a Glock with the switch on it, you know that if they got one round on paper, they're lucky. The muzzle climb in the recoil pulls the gun off target no matter how many hands you have on it. You might get one round fired effectively, and that's if you aim Most of these idiots with switches on their Glock don't even aim. They just stand there with their gold teeth gleaming and pointing and smiling until it starts to kick, and then they say, "Oh shit." Um, don't You need to be well trained. You need to know how to use a weapon, and in situations like this, you might be better off without a weapon on you. You're not going to fight your way out of something. You're just not. If you're not trained how to do it, you're not going to fight your way out of a bad situation. You might be able to defend your home if you're lucky. You might be able to defend yourself in a parking lot if you're lucky, but it's you're not going to be running around like Rambo shooting all the bad guys saving the day. It doesn't work like that. You need to get it out of your head. Back to the podcast where we were sticking with originally the Grayman movement. This is part of the reason why I say it's better you don't have a gun is you could get stopped. You could get stopped by National Guard. You know, if there's something going down, you could get stopped by police at a checkpoint. There's something going down. If it's martial law, there's a chance they're going to be confiscating weapons, even if you have your permit. There's a chance they're going to be confiscating weapons, try to get control of the area and the situation. They can't confiscate it if you don't have it on you, so keep that in mind. You know, if you're going for a walk like an idiot, you shouldn't be going anywhere, but if you got to go out, consider the fact that you might be better off without a pew-pew than with one, because you're probably going to lose it. If you have to move at night, and man, I can't recommend against this enough. If you have to move at night, there's really not a good Grayman way to do it, and you got to dip your toe in the tactical pool. I mean, you want to know where you're going. You want to know the most direct route. Man, I'll tell you what. Let's. I don't think we should talk about this. I don't think movement at night is very smart for people that don't know what they're doing. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's safe. And if you do move at night, you could give away a position of safety where you have other people that you're leaving from, and now you've compromised their safety, or you're just going to get yourself killed one way or another. If it's a shit hits a fan situation, I don't think it's a good idea. People are more inclined to think they need a bazooka or something like that moving at night, like they need something with a lot of firepower. Worst case scenario, if you got to shoot, you want a 22 or something like that, gun with a can on it. You don't want to be making any noise because you would be shocked if you truly understood how sound travels at night. You really don't want to have anything going boom. You want to have something going psh. Yeah, I know it sounds like a squirt gun. That's the best noise I can make for a 22 at night. You can't move with a large frame handgun. You can't move with a rifle or anything in Grayman. It's just not possible. So again, you shouldn't move at night. It's just a bad idea to move at night if something's going on. Short and simple. Don't move if you don't have to, day or night. Don't. The following is going to pertain to Grayman and tactical movement. You got to get to where you got to go. That's obvious. But you don't, again, have to go directly there. If you're returning back to where you started, don't retrace your steps. Take a different route. Take a much longer route. But don't retrace your steps. You never want to go front and back from A to B and B to A. Ever, ever, ever. You need to start getting it into your head. You really don't want to retrace your steps ever. And if there's more than one people at the point you're leaving from, you don't all leave together. I mean, think about what that looks like. Think about that in your head, what that looks like. You got 6 people walking out of a building and all going down the road in a straight line all together. You don't want to do that. You should have multiple points of egress. Never leave from the same place at the same time. You shouldn't leave less than 30 seconds apart. You should, or more than less than, your movement should be at least 30 seconds apart. How's that? It should be a staggered egress. It shouldn't be go, 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 if you understand what I'm saying. You also have to have multiple assembly points for if one of your points is compromised, and you need to know what to look for. You might not know. If you don't know what you're doing and you're not trained, there's a really good chance your assembly point could be compromised and you don't even know it. You need to be trained on this stuff. It's just dangerous. That's why I'm saying you shouldn't be moving if you don't have to. I I really, I really, I'm very hesitant to talk to the huddle masters about tactical movement. The issue is officers all the way up from 20-year law enforcement officers think they know, understand, and can perform tactical movement. And here lies the problem. Most cannot. Most do not understand the intricacies of tactical movement. It's that simple. Anyone that has had to perform tactical movement under fire knows you can read every book, watch every Rambo video, sorry, and have the training in boot camp, but it's not enough. You have not received enough training to be able to move truly tactical. And the problem, and I talked about the problem before, the problem is it's not just your life. If you have other people depending on you and you don't know how to leave a situation, return to a situation, everyone's life is a danger. So I'm telling you, tactical movement can really be a bitch. It sounds cool, and you people tend to have this vision in their head. I'm cool. I can move. I'm invisible. You're not. You're not. Don't do it. If you haven't been trained, don't do it. Tactical movement encompasses everything from the planning stage, map reading, plan coordination if you're lucky enough to have time to do it, and looking at the people walking on the streets, even the smells and traffic patterns and so on. If you are thrust into a tactical situation with no time to prepare, you have to be able to accomplish everything I just mentioned in seconds. Plus, you also have to make the ultimate decision in a fraction of a second, probably, if you're going to move. If you're not trained for this, you're a liability and you're putting others in danger. If you're behind cover, do you stay? If you stay, will you make it? Is things going to be worse because you're going to be overrun? If you move, are you too much danger of being a target? Do you see where I'm going with this? If you're not trained for it, don't do it. It's not duck and cover, grab the gun, run, dive into the dirt, do a somersault, pop your head up and shoot the bad guy in the forehead. That's not real life. It doesn't work like that. The first thing to be safe in a situation, Grayman or tactical or whatever, is you have to accept the fact that you're a novice, if indeed you are. If you're planning and set up from the place you're moving from, do you have multiple avenues of exit when you set up? I mean, in your head right now, if you're thinking about we found a safe place to sit, are you already thinking, do we have multiple avenues of exit? Did we cover our tracks getting here? Is there lots of signs like juice boxes and shit from kids all over the place showing a straight line into where you're at? Are you creating a kill box situation because you have only one avenue of exit? Were you too tired to cover your tracks? I mean, this is all shit you got to think about if you think you're going to even attempt tactical movement. If you're not at the point where all this is going through your head before you even stop, don't do it. If you're hearing this and thinking to yourself, I never thought of that, or any of that, or anything I've mentioned so far, you should not be thinking about tactical movement, plain and simple. You should be thinking about fortifying your position, assigning firing lanes, and filling sandbags. You will not be able to move tactically because you are not trained to do so, plain and simple. It's a suicide mission, and you could be taking others with you. That's the problem. I'm also guessing most do not know what firing lanes are, so if you don't, email me. It's right there on the web page where It shows, Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and all that shit. My email address is there. I can go into better detail of all this if you need it. I'm not going to train you over the internet, though, but, an email, but I'm more than happy to break things down a little bit more for you. Be specific if you have questions. Back to the podcast. If you are not of a trained tactical mindset, tactical movement is not an option. Just get this into your head. This is not the movie Red Dawn. Small guerrilla teams will not beat well-trained military with hunting rifles and Molotov cocktails. It just doesn't work like that. I'm appalled that at least once a month I meet someone that thinks that's how it's going to play out, and I keep thinking I should probably get what they want on their tombstone before they walk away. And remember, this is the other thing, and please take this in the best possible way you can. A weekend retreat for training, tactical training, is not enough. Do not waste your money on tactical weekends, training tactical weekends. Trust me, the guy with the cool website and all the tactical gear will gladly take your money to give you a false sense of security. You are much better pulling someone into your group that knows tactical movement from experience than going away on one of these weekend retreats or even a week-long retreat. Look at Special Forces. They train for years before they go on deep missions. So what does that tell you about these guys training for weekends or a week at a time? You're not going to learn it in a week. You're not going to learn it in a weekend. You're not going to learn it in 2 weeks. Don't waste your money. You're not going to learn anything. He's going to train you all the movie shit. You're going to think you're a badass. You're going to be the first one to take a bullet right between your favorite two eyes. Don't do it. I'm going to leave it at that. As always, watch your six. Peace out.